it's me. It's been a while since I've been doing the video, but it's been raining today. It's been wet. It's not raining that hard, so I'm out here under this tree. It's in front of the church where I usually go for my Tract distribution. Umbrella, some cashews, and a cup of coffee, my notepad, my backpack. So I'm just standing here, getting a little wet. It's not a problem, but you know. Morning, Chief. By God's grace, continues to be faithful to me. He's trying, keeping me throughout the night and giving me another day, extending His mercy towards me through the Lord Jesus. I thank God the Father for everything. Even for this day, even though it's raining, and through Jesus Christ and Jesus Christ alone. No. No, I don't. It's that lady. She works in that daycare. Good news, miss. Once in a while, ask me for a Spanish tract, which I don't have right now. I left my other batch at the store and I went back for it, and the guy said he doesn't have it. Somebody must have taken it. Good morning, Chief.
How are you?
Alright, kind of wet a little bit. Here's another good man.
Admit no.
You're not letting nobody's hosting it.
Huh? Noah's got it.
Come on, Noah.
I thought it was traffic again. Is it traffic again? No. It was raining. No? Just raining.
So John, can you just share the...
No, I just mute the other one.
This one?
Yeah. Okay.
If I need to
Just to check the,
share the screen.
Yeah, whatever you want to share on your screen. Just don't mind. Just don't mind. Just mind yours. Everything will be out there. Okay, we share.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm going, but it's not asking to put that in, so.
Oh, you don't need to join up. That's okay. I'll just show you.
I'd like to do both.
She has to cover all of it.
Make sure you want
I can still.
make sure you won't echo though. Okay, just mute it.
Okay.
Dean, there's only so much information you can fit in your working.
Dean wants more blessing.
Yes, coming both ears.
Double blessing, right? That's good.
All right, let's all open up in prayer. Father in heaven, we come before you in thanksgiving, O God, for have gathered us once again to your Bible study, O God. And we pray for your Holy Spirit to be upon each one of us, O God, especially for me, Lord, to be able to lead this Bible study. Grant us, O God, the wisdom and understanding as we go through your words, O God, for us to further our knowledge of who the mighty God that we serve, O God, and continually to apply daily to our life. For this we pray in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, so so this is a continuation of what we were doing as far as the Bible interpretation. And right now, I know Pastor did last week, we did the prophetic, I think that's what we did cover last week, right, for our Bible study. We covered Revelation and Daniel. Today I'll be going over the saying of Jesus, and as we all know, it's as we go through our, that the Bible is authoritative, and just continue to remind us of whose words are we reading and studying today. And these are again the 7 steps that we had covered for several of our Bible studies. The 7 steps that we should be doing for as far as doing a Bible interpretation. The one I'll be covering is within, well, a lot of these Jesus saying all dealt, it's shown a lot in Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John, because that is what the gospel is. It's all about the eyewitness of Jesus Christ in his life. And a lot of the sayings of Jesus Christ are really focused a lot on between Matthew, Luke, Mark, and John. So that's what we'll be covering on today. Now, when Jesus spoke, he spoke in a lot of different, what we call figure of speech. After you get the technology, you start depending on it too much that if you don't have all your other tools, it's hard to do your work. But right now, I'm just getting a lot of different things with me, so just give me a minute here. Okay. So we'll be looking at a lot of Jesus saying. I know there's a lot of also as far as we call when Jesus spoke, a lot of it has to do with the figure of speech that we use. And you know what? Oh. What's that?
For you.
No, I'm open.
It says you're not, oh, you're.
Right. Alright, it's better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. Oh, thanks, Noel. Okay, so a lot of times we'd be looking at the figure of speech of what Jesus Christ has been saying, and a lot of these things that Jesus Christ, when he spoke, he used a lot of figure of speech, and that's something that figure of speech is a phrase that means something more, something other than what it seems to say. So one of the examples that we'll be using, well, there's going to be 6 examples that we're probably looking at if we have enough time.
Roman, is that the same as metaphor?
Yes, that's why I'm going to go through the stuff by Wilson. Sorry, by Winston. It's Winston.
Got a new name.
You give me your name for Winston. Okay, so one of them, like what Winston says, has to do with one of them probably when I'll be covering, it would be 6 of them, and I think one of these topics is the one that you mentioned, Brother Winston. But the first one I'll be mentioning, the first 2 really, is very close. It's exaggeration and hyperbola. So I'm thinking math. Hyperbole.
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 Okay, so, but they're very close, so that's why in this one, I'm gonna put it next to each other so we can see the difference between the two. As far as exaggeration, when we look at exaggeration, it's overstating something that we really meant. Put a lot more, a lot of times what we talk about when somebody goes fishing, right? One person will say, I caught this much, and the next one is gonna say, I caught this much. So that's type of exaggeration. And the hyperbole is a lot more than exaggeration. It's exaggerating and exaggeration. So that's why I think with these two, we'll probably be able to see the difference. It's like the way Jesus Christ had used it. So we can see the difference between the two. If you look at this, right, we're comparing the two verses here. One's from Matthew and one's from Mark. And the one in yellow I chose, that's the one that we're looking at. But I also put the whole verse in there where we could see that it's the context of it, where it belongs. But the highlighted one are the ones that we want to look at. So if you look at exaggeration here, if you look at under Matthew 7:1-5, all this is coming from ESV. I didn't get to put the ESV in there, the version, but it's all coming from ESV. All right. So here, when exaggeration will be, look at verse 8. Why do you see the speck in your brother's eye, but not notice the log that's in your eye? So here, you could tell that, one of the exaggeration, right? I mean, if you read through, or how can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye when there's a log in your own eye? So how could you tell that's really an exaggeration? Because you're talking about, having a log in somebody's eye. So that's probably one of the key terms that he has here. Now, if you look now, that's one way of Jesus Christ have used the wording, right, so that he could put emphasis on what it is that he's talking about. But the overall context of this is, if you look at the whole context of what we just read, between verse 5 and 7, it has to do with what was he talking about the whole thing? He was talking about, judging others, right? But he's doing that by what? Making an exaggeration about the speck in your eye, comparing your speck in your eye, but yet the one that's making the judgment is saying that he has a log in his eye, which shows you the comparison, how grievous, what it's really telling you is how grievous it is that you're judging, with you talking about something that you yourself not even notice. You notice on somebody else, but yet you don't notice on yourself. So that's why with the emphasis of having the log in your eye on that. And the other example we'd be looking at would be, this one, a lot of people, we have gone through this a couple of times, and probably one of the famous ones has to do with the rich young man. It has to do with what? This has to do with how difficult it is to enter the kingdom of God. Based on what? How was he emphasizing this? It's emphasizing how to count, a camel and you going through the eye of a needle. It's much easier, right? So you see how he's comparing that with the exaggeration, how he's exaggerating from an actual camel trying to make it through a needle. So you could tell that an exaggeration of it. But he's really saying it, if you look now at the whole context, if you go through the whole context of that between Mark 10, verses 7 to 27, it all has to do with the emphasis of what? The richness, how difficult it is for, even for a rich man to, it's easier, how difficult it is to make it through heaven, but yet he's comparing that to a camel. So, so do you understand like what we're trying to say here as far as the exaggeration of the wording, so we could put emphasis on the things that God has spoken, Jesus Christ is speaking to us here.
This is the doctrinal truth, right?
Yes.
The total depravity of man, giving an example that is impossible to be saved by the work of man.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's giving us the example of a camel entering the eye of the needle. It's an impossibility.
It's an impossibility that everything's possible through men
Is
except
that what we term exaggeration?
exaggeration. Exaggeration, well, that's exaggeration, yes, because you're comparing, if you look at it, a camel going through a needle, could you even picture that for a camel going through the eye of a needle?
Impossible.
It's just impossible. I think they were saying no, that there is really an eye of a needle in Israel, but they said that it's not really true. It's really not, it's like a cavern that it's a camel.
Yeah, I was gonna say, maybe it's,
But it was never proven, it was never, there was nothing like that.
okay.
So that's an exaggeration. So you see the comparison of the how when we're thinking about the exaggeration. Now the exaggeration of an exaggeration is what we call it hyperbole. All right, and if and one of the two examples that we have looked at is if is here in Matthew 5:27-30, right? Okay, again, the verse that we're looking at is 30. So, can everybody see that? Is it hard to read?
Yeah.
All right.
It's okay, we have it.
I can't make it bigger because,
What is it, Matthew what?
Matthew 7. Matthew 7,
Yeah.
Matthew 5.
Oh, 5.
Matthew 5:30.
27 to 30.
You know what I'm doing is I can see it real good on my laptop.
Yeah.
So here, if you look at Matthew 5:30, right? Now this is the hyperbole. And what does it say here? It says on 30, it says, "And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than your whole body go into hell." Right? So that's, you got to look at it more. If you read it literally,
Yeah, I'm gonna say,
right?
do you mean it literally, or is it just?
Well, that's if you read it literally, is it possible that yes, it is possible you could do it, right? You can actually cut off your right arm and toss it, but it's really with the background here. If here is just emphasizing more of how how sinfulness is,
How serious?
how serious it is, that you got to do your own out of your way as far as the here he's putting the emphasis that you should actually cut off your arm and get rid of it.
It comes to that. Yeah.
Comes to that, all right. But if you notice, if you read it, how it caught your attention, right? Just when Gene was reading it, you see how it sounds violent.
Yeah, very.
But yet that's how serious that Jesus Christ had put emphasis on the seriousness of the sin is, right? And it's not only just with that verse. If you look at verse 27, where it says, you shall not commit adultery, right? And continue on to 28. But I say to everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. So that's how if you look at the whole context of what we just read from 27 to 30, that's how serious it is with the sinfulness. That even, because back then, during those times, people were actually taking that, well, as long as I don't do the physical adultery, I'm not sinning.
Yeah.
But here, Jesus is emphasizing, no, just even the thought of it,
Yeah.
of another woman, you're already committing a sinful act, right? So that's what, when we look at this, but then as you go down to 30, he really emphasized that, how serious that sin is. Regardless what it is, it's still sin, and that's how it's grievous it is against God. So, but yet on the whole, if you just read 30, you think that, it's just a violent act because of what you did with sinfulness, it's just a physical act. But no, it's even, if you go back to the overall context of this, it's the whole thing. It's even just a thought of what you're thinking. It also has to do with, what's the other one within this verse is if you're angry, right? It's the same thing. When you commit a murder, but yet if you have anger in your heart against a fellow Christian, it's also almost, you're not physically committing a murder, but yet you have that anger, you get that
Or
hatred towards a brother or sister. Okay, and so the other hyperbole we'll be looking at is, this one is in Luke you look at 26, what this 26 says. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and the wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, this whole thing has to do with the cost of the discipleship of following Jesus Christ. And if you read through this, you know, what words do you see in there that's very harsh, that you think it's you know, towards people? Hate, right? So that's, you know, I mean, compared to what we probably just read in Matthew, as far as cutting off your arm, but here with this one's the hate, it's because it's not the physical thing, it's your feelings towards one another.
That's where sin starts anyway,
In
within.
your heart.
Yeah, in the heart.
So that's one of the ones that we gotta look at. So here he's saying that here within. Now, if we look at over the whole context of this, the whole context of where that verse fits within this Luke 24. If you follow with 27, it says, "Whoever does not bear his own cross and comes after me cannot be my disciple." So that's really what the emphasis is. This is what it is. You got to look at the cost. You know what's going to cost you to be a disciple of Jesus Christ. What He expects from you. So here, he's not saying that you hate you hate your parents and things like that, but no, he goes, it's more. There's more to following Him than just the love for your parents. Here, he's saying that you got to bear your own cross. You got to be able to carry what the burdens that you have. And if you look at 33, I mean, the whole from 27 all the way to 33 within that Luke 24 has to do with the cost of the discipleship. Here is comparing about building the towers, that you should know what's going to cost you to build that tower, right? And if you don't have enough, that you should, how are you going to even do it? How are you even going to finish it? So that's one of the ones I think he was shown here as an instruction for us. And that verse 33, so therefore any one of you who does not renounce all that he has cannot be my disciples. That means everything has to be put on him. All your life, you have to all put upon Jesus Christ, and that's what it's called for. For you to give up everything, for you to follow Him.
This is quite important because we cannot forsake all things.
All things, but yet,
If we have to do that, we should be without sin anymore, right?
yes, possibly.
So, meaning this is kind of a hyperbole that speaks of entering heaven in the fullness of God's forgiveness upon us. Because we cannot enter heaven without any sin.
Yes.
We cannot be perfect on earth unless only one man, that is the incarnation of Christ, who became perfect. But to enter heaven, we have to be declared righteous. A declaration, not to be made righteous. To be declared righteous according to the standards of God's moral law. So this is an exaggeration of conscious about the entering heaven in a state of purity and holiness. Do you think so? It's an exaggeration to reach a point.
Yeah, to perfection. It's almost like you giving up. You have to give up
It's
everything.
in perfection, it's in that right, perfection. Who does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. It's a strong language.
So that's why, with these two I put next to each other, because it's really, sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference between hyperbole and exaggeration when you're reading through it. But here you can see how Jesus had used these words on that, as far as the putting emphasis on sin, and also on here has to do with the cost of following him and being his disciple.
How do we define again hyperbole?
Exaggeration. It's more than exaggeration. I wrote it down here.
Like a
Hyper meaning something that is
like
in the
over.
in the application.
It's more extreme. Extreme of the exaggeration.
Extreme, right?
Extreme. But sometimes it's like between here